Today we're going to talk about over-focused ADHD, a very inflexible type. We use the different characters from the Winnie the Pooh stories, right? The 100-Acre Wood, to talk about the different types of ADHD, because we just find that it's something people can sort of grab hold of easily. And so this particular type is associated with Rabbit. Now, in the Winnie the Pooh stories, Rabbit, he's fine. I mean, he's a good guy. But once he gets locked on doing something, he is just locked in. He just doesn't have a lot of flexibility in neurological function. So when he gets himself ready for winter and he's doing all the preparations he needs for winter, he is the one animal in this forest who is absolutely going to be ready for winter. But if somebody else wants to stop by his house and have a cup of tea with him, he just can't make that shift because he's locked in on what it is that he's doing. So of all the characters in the Winnie the Pooh stories, of all the characters in the 100-Acre Wood, he is the least flexible character in these stories. But he can get a lot of things done. When he gets started on something, he can get it done. He just can't do anything else. So he's the one character who will be prepared for winter. He has a very hard time shifting from one task to another. He is absolutely task-oriented and focused on whatever that task might be. And somebody with this kind of over-focused ADHD is very similar to that. He has trouble shifting attention from one activity to another, frequently gets stuck in loops of negative thinking. Once the negative thinking starts, they're stuck on that. It can be very difficult to get somebody out of the loops of negative thought. They can be obsessive with something that they're involved with. They can be very inflexible. And because of that, they can become very argumentative, very oppositional to parents. You know, we need to stop doing that and we need to start doing this now. And they can have a very hard time with that. We need to stop playing with that video game and we need to start getting ready for church now. It's just very hard, and that you can get a lot of resistance in that shifting from one activity to another activity. So he might be a lot like a bulldog and just not give up until he gets his way, or until you as mom or dad are just worn out with trying to argue with him. Some little tip that I heard somebody say was, after you've been asked, like for the 40th time, if you can go get a hamburger, just say yes. Doesn't mean you're going to, just say yes. And see if they can get out of that loop, and you can now start to actually talk with them. I don't know if it'll work or not for you, but I've heard parents say that's what they do. They just say yes. And then their brain shifts out of that gear, and then they can start actually having a conversation with them. But more often than not, parents just get worn out. They get worn down, they're fed up, they're like ready to break. This type of ADHD is not for the faint. Not for the faint at heart. So hang in there. You can do this. So parenting a child like this can be very hard, and someone with over-focused ADHD can worry a lot, even over things that don't really matter very much. They can be very oppositional to you, the parent, the grandparent. They may like to argue, especially as they hit that 13, 14, 15-year-old age where the brain can argue either side of an issue just for fun, just for practice. Well, so here, they may really like not just to contradict, but I mean to argue with you. They may be somewhat compulsive about the way things ought to be done. And that can be awesome if it's that they're compulsive about having their room clean, but it's typically not that. It's typically about other things in life that they're kind of compulsive about. And they have a very, very hard time shifting activity from one activity to another. So this can be hard in a classroom setting. They come in from the playground and now they need to sit down and get started with their English work. Maybe, maybe not. Things that are going on inside their head, like planning to actually doing something in the outside world, like taking the trash out, these kind of shifts can be very, very hard. They're very inflexible neurologically. And they tend to always want to have their way in the way things are done. So the cause of this type of ADHD is an overactive anterior cingulate gyrus. It's a long phrase. Let me show you a picture. You see what I mean? So the anterior cingulate gyrus, you have the limbic system that we've talked about in another video, and it sort of lays on top of that, and then the cortex lays on top of that. So it kind of wraps around here. So it's kind of below the cortex, and they consider it a part of the limbic system. So it certainly is interwoven in with all the functions of the limbic system including the amygdala. They communicate with each other. So the cingulate gyrus helps with learning, processing of information. It helps with memory, but it can get stuck, and that's kind of what we're seeing going on in this particular type of ADHD. Now we're going to talk in other videos about learning, how to improve your ability to learn, how to learn faster, maybe even super fast. And the cingulate gyrus is a big part of that. It's a big part of motivation, and motivation is the key to learning. So it's a big part in the whole learning process. When it's overactive, like you saw in that picture, when it's overactive, you can get this excessive worrying, because remember, it's intimately involved with the limbic system, that emotional part of the brain. You get stuck in loops of negative thinking, and when you get stuck there, then you just argue your way out of it. You're argumentative, you're oppositional to people who are just going, hey, it's okay, we can go do something else. That can be very, very difficult to parent a child like that. They don't tend to see other options. And we want to try to train people to see options before they make a decision. But when this thing's all fired up, I mean, they just don't see other options. It's their way or the highway. It's just how it's gonna be. There can be really excessive worrying because, like with Piglet, it's tied in with that limbic system. They tend to hold grudges. Once they get stuck in this negative thinking, they can hold a grudge for a long, long time. There's a tendency to want everything to be their way and not look at other ways of thinking, not consider other options. This is just the way we're going to do it. So this is Rabbit. Rabbit wants to get ready for winter, and he doesn't want anybody really to bother him while he's doing that. But the rest of the world is going on. People want to come over and enjoy time with him. People want him to maybe help them out with another project, and Rabbit just doesn't want to do that. He just needs to stay focused on what he needs to stay focused on until it's done. So this can be great if you're a computer programmer and you get paid by the job being done, and you don't mind just locking yourself in the closet and working on a project until it's over. This can be great. But it can be very difficult if you live with other people, and other people who have different opinions, and other people who want to actually interact socially, and other people who are there with you in the classroom at school. It can be very, very difficult. So this is Rabbit-style ADHD. Let's look at some treatment options for that. So even though this goes in the category of ADHD, and you really want to get this part of the brain, this inhibitory mechanism of the cortex, the executive functions of the brain, you want to get them working better. So the temptation is, hey, we want to use a stimulant medication because you have this overactive cingulate gyrus that may not turn out well. So this may be a place where, like with Piglet, we recommended Attend and X-Stress. X-Stress may be very helpful for this to calm down that fired up anterior cingulate gyrus. It may be very helpful with that. X-Stress by a company called Vaxa, V-A-X-A. You can get it on Amazon, and you could take 3, 4, 5, 6 of those a day and see if it calms down that rigid, overactive part of the brain there. But also, if you're going to go to your doctor, you may want to try some non-stimulant treatment options first. And there are some non-stimulants that are used for the treatment of ADHD. They may be more helpful in a situation like this. And even some medications that are used for anxiety might be helpful here. So you want to talk to your medical doctor about that and see what he thinks is best. Just giving you kind of a heads up on this particular profile of ADHD and what might be the most efficient ways to help out a child or teenager or spouse who has this kind of ADHD.
There's nowhere that I would rather be today. Welcome to our office in uptown Scottsdale. I'm Dr. Douglas Cowan. We provide the finest in neurofeedback and counseling services, and we do hope that you